Stan Wysocki,
Here.
Kate Bayuk.
Here.
And I'd like to be the first person to welcome Kate Bayuk, who is our newest select board member.
Welcome, Kate.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Yes,
Thank you.
welcome, welcome.
And our first agenda item tonight is a board reorganization. So may I have a motion to elect a chair?
Make a motion that we elect Brian Boyle as chair.
Thank you. And may I have a second?
Second.
And I'll take a roll call vote. Stan
Second.
Wysocki,
Yes.
Kate Bayuk,
Yes.
Brian Boyle.
Yes.
Thank you. And now I'm happily turning the meeting over to Brian.
All right. Thanks, Jenny. And thank you, Kate and Stan. I will do my best not to totally screw this up over the next year. So I believe we have to now nominate a clerk, and it's my understanding that we typically nominate the person who would be serving as chair next year.
Correct.
So is there a nomination for Stan Wysocki to serve as clerk?
I'll make a motion for Stan Wysocki to serve as clerk.
And I'll second that. And I will take a roll call vote. Kate,
Yes.
Stan,
Yes.
and I'm a yes also. Thanks, Stan.
You're very welcome, Brian. Well, you're in the hot seat this year, so.
Yeah. All right, so moving right along, the next item on our agenda is to consider a request from Bolton Access Television for the release of $24,297.45 from the PEG cable account for the first quarter operating expenses. And I know we're running just a minute or two ahead of schedule, but I believe, do we have Nikki McGackey there? You are,
Nikki's
Nikki.
here. Nikki's here.
Hello.
Hey, Nikki, thanks for joining us. Do you want to just explain a little bit what this request is about?
Sure. This is just for our quarter one franchise fee payment from Comcast. It's down a little bit this quarter, kind of as per usual, with cutting the cable, but we're keeping track of it and rolling along. So
And how's everything going with Bolton Access?
it's going well. So we are gearing up for the Neshoba High School graduation. So if there's anyone watching who wants to order their copy of the graduation, they can do so from our website. There's a tab up at the top for graduation DVDs or USBs, because we know a lot of folks don't use DVDs anymore. You can choose one or the other or both. And we will also be live streaming it. So there's that option, for anybody who can't make it to the ceremony to watch as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I know that we got the paperwork to sort of provide backup for the requested amount. Are there any questions from the members of the select board about this?
Not from me.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could just give me a 30-minute sketch of the finances so I understand how it all works, what the accounts are, where the money comes from, and where it goes.
Sure.
Just for my own
So the way we are set up is every town who utilizes this has a contract with their cable provider, and for Bolton it's just Comcast. They're our only provider. And that dictates a certain percentage of their profit to be used for the funding of PEG television, public education and government. So we get that money on a quarterly basis, and then we also receive at the moment it is a lump sum of capital money. That may change in this next year because we are in the process of updating our capital or our contract with Comcast. That'll change July 1st. But at the moment, we receive a lump sum once a year as well that is just earmarked for capital. This was all put in place by the 1984 Cable Act, so it's been around for a super duper long time. Back then, they the FCC had the foresight to say, you know what, the cable companies are going to be these huge things and they're not going to carry any local programming, so they need to set aside this money to fund local programming. Now, unfortunately, the law has not been updated since the 90s, and so it still only works with traditional cable packages, which means everybody who has switched to streaming and no longer has a cable package no longer helps fund this service, which is why we're seeing our revenue decrease quarterly, which is unfortunate. And every access station in the state is trying to find ways to bring in new revenue, look at donations, grants. There's legislation that is currently working its way through the Senate and the House to hopefully bring in some funds from streaming providers, but we don't know where that's going to end. We're further along with that than we ever have been in the past, but it's a long process updating laws. So we're hanging in there right now as best we can, and we're trying to bring in some new revenue sources. We've got production income. We do a donation drive every year. And we got a grant from the Mass Cultural Council last year as well that we'll be applying for again this year also.
Great.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Yeah, no problem. Feel free to email me or something. It's really complicated and it's kind of hard to explain in like a short synopsis, but I'm happy to talk further if you have any other questions.
Thanks, Nikki. That was great. All right, so is there a motion to approve the request from Bolton Access Television for the release of $24,297.45 from the PEG cable account?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request from Bolton Access Television for the amount of $24,297.45 from the PEG cable account for Q1 operating expenses.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Stan,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thanks so much, Nikki. Thanks for your time.
guys.
Thanks, Nikki. You're doing a great job.
Talk to
Thank
you
you,
later.
Nikki.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Great. Okay, next up, we're running a little ahead of schedule, but we have, we'd like to consider a request for approval for a free ticketed Pride event for the community on Saturday, June 29th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Cultivate Care Farms. Is Megan Moran or somebody else from Cultivate Care Farms here this evening to speak about the request?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, is that
Can
Megan?
you hear me? Yes. Hi, I'm Megan. Yes.
Hi, yep, we can hear you. Thanks for being here. Could you just walk us through this request?
Sure, of course. This is an event, a Pride event that we have been doing generally in October since the pandemic started. And this is the first time that we will actually be attending the Bolton event this coming Saturday, but wanted to have a Pride event given the majority of the population that we serve on Saturday, June 29th. So this will look like other events that we've had. We're just ticketing it in order to keep the numbers lower on campus, and so that we don't need kind of police detail for traffic reasons. But yes, it's a free event where people can come. We'll have a few different organizations who also serve LGBTQ plus clients, and we'll have like a Pride path that we paint. We'll have free shirts that people will get to tie-dye. It's really just an opportunity to celebrate diversity and have the community come together.
Great, thank you. And I believe I saw in our packets for tonight that you had reached out to the chief of police about the event and gotten his approval subject to the provisions related to restricted parking.
Correct.
Yep.
Great. Okay, so at this point, I'd just like to see whether any members of the select board have questions for you.
I don't. I mean, I think the folks that Cultivate Care, have done similar things in the past, and I think they've set it up so that that they'll be a good flow of folks, and I believe that there's not going to be an issue in terms of people parking. So, and the chief is okay with it, so I'm fine with it as well.
Okay.
I've reviewed everything in the packet and I have no questions.
Okay. By the way, Megan, for the record, I did go to the goat shower because I was so curious and it was really fun. So
I'm
It was
so
a
glad you came.
very sweet event.
Excellent. Oh, good. Please come back. Please
Yeah.
come back.
Um,
Sorry, that's my own dog in the back of the house.
sure. All right. So, seeing as how all questions have been answered, is there a motion to approve this request?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request for a free ticketed Pride event for the community on Saturday, June 29th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Cultivate Care Farms at 401 Main Street.
Second,
Okay, great. Roll call. Kate,
yes.
Stan,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you very much, Megan, for your time.
Great. Yes. Thank you so much.
Sorry, Jenny, are we able to mute? There we go. Perfect. Okay, next up on our agenda, we're going to consider a request from Studio In Situ Architects related to their using portions of the town common parking lot during some upcoming phases of relocation and construction at the barn project at 711 to 713 Main Street. I don't know whether we have anybody here yet to speak about that request. Jenny, are you able to tell?
I don't see anyone. Are we running a little bit early?
We
Yes,
are.
we are.
We
running
are.
about- yeah.
I can send the link right now and maybe they'll join early.
Okay, well, in the meantime, should we take the tried and true route of allowing our gosh, I can't believe I finally get the privilege of asking our town administrator to deliver his report.
And then some, if we need more time.
Accustomed as I am to public speaking, I will attempt to deliver my, what appears to be penultimate town administrator report.
Actually, I'm sorry, Don, to interrupt, but it did occur to me that because this is Kate's first meeting, providing some background on the MVP program might be helpful, because I know we've had this as a standing agenda item, but just trying to help you find ways to fill time.
Oh, so Brian, that's a nice way of going like this, right? So,
Happily pretend that I'm not already familiar with it, so.
Kate has been a loyal attendee for the past several meetings, but yes, so the MVP, for those who don't know, MVP stands for Municipal Vulnerability Program, and it's a state-funded grant that's meant to help communities adapt with climate change, with more adaptive approaches to green areas, and to try to improve quality of life at the same time. This particular project or proposal has to do with Derby Field and upgrading the infrastructure and such at Derby Field. As I said at the last meeting, there was a public meeting today, public meeting today. The people were invited to provide their input on the plans for the field. You know, we've the grant we're working off of now has been funded for the engineering and design, and the grant application we're submitting will be we're seeking the funding to actually do the construction of the field. So we had the landscape architect present today what the plans were at the conceptual level, to have some examples of what we're looking at for things like the edible garden, some potential plantings and so forth. And overall, get the public's input on the plans. I thought it was a well-done event. I thought it was fairly well attended. And there were some good questions and comments. Jenny was there a little longer than me. I had to run to handle some other things, but Jenny, is there anything that you would like to add to that?
No, I think that's pretty good. I do think that there were some good questions that bubbled up, and Rebecca let the participants know that was the point of the event, because it's so early in the planning phase that there's still time to take that input from the community and make some impactful changes to the plan. And I thought she did a great job. It was really nice to walk I've been to the field a million times. My kids have played on that field a million times, but to walk the perimeter, I don't think I've ever done that before. And they had some of the plants that are going to be planted in the edible garden there. And they had the trail painted, spray painted onto the field. So you really got an idea of where the walking trail is going to be. And I think it's going to be really nice.
Great. Thank you
Yep.
for the update.
So no, very, very, very excited about that. And Rebecca's always did a great job. And I would like to add that the grant coordinator that we work with from the state was there as well to observe the event and to be able to hear the questions and comments from the public. So it was excellent of her to take the time to attend. But if anyone has any questions or comments for me, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Any from Stan or Kate?
Nope, I'm fine.
Nope.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So I don't think that there's anything else in your update, right, Don?
No, not tonight.
I don't remember the last time we've been in this situation, but do we have to just wait, or can we address some of the select board business?
I would suggest you address the select board business.
Yeah. That'll work.
I think maybe he's here for the next
Oh,
agenda.
yep, I just see, it looks like Mr. Hess has arrived.
Great.
So Mr. Hess, if you're able to unmute, we would like to go back to the agenda item related to the request to use portions of the town common parking lot during some upcoming relocation and construction at 711, 713 Main Street. Could you walk us through the request, please? And Jenny, I'll just rely on you to screen share if there comes a point where it'd be helpful for us to share those images with the public.
Mr. Chair, thanks so much. Can you confirm that you hear me?
Yes. we can
Great.
hear you.
And if I may, my understanding was we were on the agenda for 7:25. Did I misunderstand that?
We're just running a little early.
No, we're running a little ahead of schedule, so
Okay.
you're great. We're just too efficient. That's our problem.
Oh, good. Well, I feel much better now. Yes, happy to help.
It's all us. It's not you.
So, yeah, we, as I suspect you will recall, we sought your permission and that of the CONSCOM earlier this spring for the opportunity to park a crane in a couple of different positions. We identified one along Community Way and one in the common parking lot for the removal of trees. We were able to beat our admittedly pretty conservative schedule and timeline for that. As far as I know, we beat that pretty dramatically. And that experience helped us understand that it might make sense to consider those same crane locations for their advantages, or I should say one of those same crane locations for the advantage it could offer us in working on this very tight site. You'll see Jay Murray here holding his chin. He's the general contractor on the job, and he can add some detail and color should that be helpful. But you can all probably appreciate we've got just a couple of 100 square feet of that courtyard space between the three buildings from which we are trying to stage quite a bit of construction. The bit that will have happened over the last many months has been largely confined to the smaller building at 7-Eleven. And the next phases include the replacement, roughly in kind, of an antique barn where we removed one many months ago. Complicated by the fact that in that same courtyard, we also are adding our new septic system. So the ability to do some significant chunk of that work from another crane location would enable just provide a very powerful bit of flexibility, potentially even to shave some significant number of months off of the overall project duration. So I guess I'll leave it there for the moment. And as I said, Jay can add more detail. I did forward to Jenny, and Jenny, I'm not sure how much of this you may have handy. I can certainly screen share too, if the chair would like that. But we provided a copy of that site plan that accompanied our RDA for the tree removal with a simple kind of red line markup to indicate the community way portion of that request that's not part of the current request, and preserving only that portion of the common parking lot that remains a part of this request. And in addition to that, we provided a timeline. I think it's important to characterize, the nature of nailing down variables is that, it begins to look highly specific. And while it's an honest and accurate representation of our intent, we're not really ready to promise that we wouldn't need some flexibility with any given date. The bits that we're ready to commit to on that timeline have to do with freeing up the parking lot in its entirety every single weekend. We've had some dialogue with Lisa Sheppel at the Parks Department. We understand that would be an important difference maker for them. Lisa also identified at least one other date, and which we are going to think of as kind of a blackout date for important parks events, and then holidays, including the 4th of July. And I think Labor Day would also be these outside of weekends where we would not make any effort at all to share that space. So
Got it. Mr. Hess, could I just interrupt for 1 second? And I was going to ask I was going to ask Jenny Jacobson if you're able to share on the screen that sort of the colored draft schedule, because I had
Sure.
I had some questions about, honestly, just it looked like there were a couple different shades of gray that I couldn't exactly tie back to the color key. It looked like there's 3 shades of gray, but the color key only has 2. So could you just explain that for us?
Yeah, boy, that's good eye. So the darkest gray indicates something like a less conservative guess about setting piers. We're identifying there starting Monday, June 17th, guessing that we could get those piers set in something like 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're in a kind of official conversation with use of town land in a way that's kind of consequential, we want to be very conservative, and we don't want to put ourselves in a position to have received permission for 5 days and then need 6, right? So we're adding a kind of a significant contingency on every assumption here. So what that means is, honestly, I think we can set the piers in a week, but I want to say it's 2 weeks. The following week, we plan to be out of there altogether. The following week, we're guessing we can get the steel beams installed in 3 days. We're going to ask for 5.
Mhm.
It's et cetera, et cetera.
So then, when it comes to those antique timbers, that's where I saw it looked like there were maybe 3 weeks worth of, like 1 and then 2 contingency weeks. Is that right?
That is right. Yep.
Okay.
And it just has to do with the kind of quantity of variables there. It's perhaps you can imagine as antiques that it's not a mass produced item. So we're a little bit less confident that we know exactly what we're going to get when it shows up on site and how much finesse it may require.
Got it. Then my other initial question is actually related to Jenny Jacobson passed along some departmental feedback or concerns, and I was just wondering, have all of those been shared with Mr. Hess and his team?
And is that to me or to Jenny?
Well, I guess to Jenny and to you, but
Well,
I
I haven't seen it.
I could share those on the screen now if you'd like me to. I think some Tim is aware of and some, I think I was waiting until after this meeting to
got it.
convey to him. Do you want me to share those now or?
Yeah, I think it's helpful just so everybody sees what the concerns
Okay.
expressed were.
Let me make sure I put those in my meeting folder. They were such a late send. They may not be in there yet. Give me 1 sec.
Yeah, I'm anticipating some of the same kinds of concerns that we had for the tree removal, primarily having to do with public safety, questions of police detail, that kind of thing, but
Yeah, so you can see the first comment on the left from our incoming police chief is about police detail to help facilitate the entering and exiting of that intersection. Is that similar? It sounds like that's similar to what was done during the tree removal part.
yeah, I mean, just giving it a pretty quick skim, but it looks similar. I think our sense, Jay, I'll ask you to chime in. Our sense here is that there's probably not a great reason to close the road as far as from our vantage point. In that the area we're requesting is something like, less than half of the parking lot, access use of certainly the north half of the parking lot, and then access to that is something that from our vantage point, we don't see a need to limit.
I think it makes sense to have a detail officer on site, but I don't think we need to shut off the access or the complete parking lot. And that's based on our experience with the trees. I actually talked to the detail officer and told him I didn't think we needed to. And he opted to out of caution, but I don't think we need to do that for most of these picks.
So when you say that the detail officer opted to close it down at one point, was that just like an in the moment decision, or is that, because I'm just
It
thinking
was an in the moment decision on his behalf. Yes.
got it. Then there's the expression of concern from our fire chief about a clear pathway of 10 feet for fire apparatus and or ambulance if there's an emergency.
Yeah, I can answer that if you'd like. I don't see any problems with that. One of the reasons we're advocating for picking from the back of the lot versus the side of 713 is to leave that major driveway open. So there would be access to all their cars.
Okay. I don't know whether the next concern expressed by the DPW also applied for the tree removal, but he's suggesting some protection to collect oil and other fluids from the parked crane.
That did apply to the tree removal, and those protections are in place and will remain in place for the duration of the project.
Got it.
That's specifically, Mr. Chair, just to add a little detail to that, it's erosion control as required by the RDA with the Conservation Commission. That stuff's still in place. And as the concern about fluid leaks was expressed by DPW and I believe the police chief, they asked for some certificates of insurance from the relevant subcontractors, and I believe we have forwarded a couple of those over to Jenny earlier today, and would certainly provide the balance of them before any work proceeded.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. I think you can stop sharing screen.
I just
Question-
wanted to comment on the insurance certificates, in the portion that I didn't share there. Our insurance company just wanted to make sure that the town of Bolton is named as an additional insured on each of those policies. That was
Yep.
the language that they used.
Yep.
Okay,
I
any
think-
questions from the rest of the select board?
Well, from my perspective, I mean, Mr. Hess and Company, when they did the tree removal, did a great job. And I see no reason why they won't continue to do the same quality work here. So, you know, I think from the schedule, a couple of things have been pointed out in terms of potential uses of the common. There might be heavy uses. If there are any other, you know, Lisa Sheppel should identify them. But I think I have no issue with Mr. Hess and to do the work that they need to do, and I think they'll do it just as well as they did when they were asking to remove the trees last year. So I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, there's gonna be one more game.
Yeah, I
They,
had,
they all get one day to prepare.
I had a couple of questions, just because I wasn't on the board for the tree removal, although I'm familiar with it. And I don't have a picture in my package in terms of where you're looking to put the crane now. So can you just explain to me kind of where, how much of the parking lot is you're gonna block off, and how many cars would still have access for parking during the weeks? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so this is, I think in spirit, this will answer your question. It's not an accurate representation of the commitment we made to the Conservation Commission by the time it proceeded. But if we use this just as a sort of, you know, approximation placeholder, if you look at the let's call it central upper left, there's a red shaded diagonally hatched rectangle. This is a spot we would not want to use. So it would be our intent to keep the access drive open throughout. And what's represented in this graphic as consuming 1.5 parking spaces did evolve and grow pretty significantly by the time we completed our dialogue with the CONSCOM. And it's, I'm not sure whether it's all 7 of those spaces at, let's call it, well, I know it to be the south end of that lot. I'm not sure whether it's all 7 or just most of those, but it's really, in practice, I think it would be the bulk of that width along the spaces there.
Okay, so there would still be the middle row of parking and the northern parking spots available for people using the common during the week.
Yep.
Yeah, and it may be worth mentioning. It's a bit of granular detail, but our permission to use this space from the not that it's up to the CONSCOM to let us use this space. We understand clearly that's a select board issue, but our I'm gonna not worry so much about the verbiage, but the CONSCOM is comfortable with us using the same space again without a fresh request for determination only if it's really the same space. And that's been quite clearly defined and bounded through that permissions process and is recorded in our RDA. So we're bound to stick with that same area.
Okay, great. My second question is on the police details. Do you only need those on the days and times that you're actually moving the equipment to clear your equipment off the lot? Or do you need to have a police detail throughout all of the crane operations during the week?
That's for you, Jay.
Yeah, I can answer that. I think it makes sense to have a police detail for the picking as well. And I think that's definitely an abundance of caution. But it just makes sense to make sure that nobody walks under the crane or oversteps their boundary.
Okay, and one last question, and then I think I'm all set. On the draft schedule that you gave us, I understand it's really, really conservative, but if you finish all of your work in, the dark gray section, so for example, the week of June 17th, if you finish setting the concrete piers that week, are you then going to accelerate the rest of your schedule and bump it up? Or are you not, you're not going to install the steel beams until the week of July 4th or July 8th, no matter what? Does my question make sense?
It does. I mean, maybe we should both take a swing at this one, Jay. I think there's just a lot of moving parts, and we would accelerate wherever we thought we could. But I mean, I guess that's the best answer I could give it. Maybe you can fill in a little better, Jay.
Yeah, I think we'll accelerate the best we can. We obviously want to limit our exposure to the town and limit the time that we're using the town's property. I think I'm just drawing a blank here. Something made sense to me.
Well, a lot of these are long lead items that require a pretty substantial back and forth approval process with these vendors. And some of them are dependent upon having nailed down the details of the previous. So it may be tough to get substantial acceleration, even if we want to.
What I was going to say is, I think the approach that we will take here is that we let the town's schedule drive our schedule to some extent. So we'll take the steps that we can take within the availability of the town, and then we'll line up our next step, look at the schedule of the town, make sure that there's no major events or need for the parking lot, and we'll schedule our next step.
I see. So if I'm looking at the current schedule without any acceleration, it looks like there's been an effort to basically have the lot cleared for the entire week of July 4th and then basically the entire week of Labor Day. So even if you were able to accelerate some parts of this project, you would probably still try to keep those 2 weeks cleared just because they involve some key events from our Parks and Rec perspective.
Yeah, those 2 weeks and any particular weeks that the Parks and Rec might say to us, this is going to be a bad week for us, we'll just arrange it around that.
Okay. Great. Any other
Thank you.
questions? I do actually have sort of a technical question for maybe Stan or Dawn or Jenny, which is, I know that we have a request to approve this work, but I don't know whether in the motion to approve the request, we need to include any of the specifics around their agreement to kind of work with the departments to address the concerns that we reviewed, or whether it's just, we've had this discussion in a public meeting and they know what's important to us, so we can just approve the request as is, and they're going to work in good faith to do what we talked about.
I would suggest a motion include just an acknowledgement and agreement of the concerns raised by the various department heads,
Great.
without having to list them, just acknowledging
Yeah.
those.
That's fine. Yeah.
Want to take a crack at that, Stan?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the request from Studio In Situ Architects to utilize portions of the town common parking lot during the 4 phases of relocation and or construction of a barn at 711-713 Main Street, with the applicant noting the concerns of the various department heads and taking that into consideration.
If I may, sir, just a brief friendly amendment. The 4 phases has grown to 7 per the color-coded diagram.
Okay, it's now 7 phases, but still encompassed within the diagram and schedule that we have been provided. So amended.
I'll second that.
Great. Roll call, Stan,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and I'm a yes also. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and explaining everything and answering our questions.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your help.
Thank you very much.
right, good
When you
luck.
get close
you,
to
good
being
luck.
done, I really would like to see what it looks like on the inside. I'm very curious.
Yeah.
We'd be delighted to show you.
Thank you. Thank you. It'll be my pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good
Good
night.
night. All right, great. Next up, we're going to review a notice of intent from Paul Arzeka, trustee of Fiddler Green Realty Trust, to sell 2 parcels located on Green Road. And I know that we have Attorney Philbin present because we need to review the purchase and sale and then consider the town's right of first refusal. So, hi, Mr. Philbin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for being here. Do you want to walk us through this request?
Sure. Mr. Zeka's he has 2 parcels that he's selling. There is a 3rd parcel, but that's not included in the sale. Apparently that is an area that the town uses to pump water in the event of fires in this area. Mr. Zeka has had this property in 61A land, 61A protection for quite some time. He's entered into a purchase and sale agreement with, I believe it's Cody Construction here, Cody Contracting LLC, for the purchase price as outlined in it. We provided the assessor's maps as required, but in addition to that, what we've done is provide a plan that had been done quite a few years ago to show the potential for developing this land. 4 of the lots would be A&R plans, approval not required plans for the planning board. There were 2 back lots that they'd have to go to the planning board for approval on. We've had prior percolation tests done, and apparently we reviewed those that were with the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health, and everything seems to be in order there. The developer still is going to be doing some work out there, but it's pretty much set to go here, and we're looking for the town to see whether they want to exercise their option here to purchase the property.
Okay, I'd like to open it up to questions.
If I may, for the board, we received notice this afternoon from town planner Pam Harding that the planning board has declined to express an interest in the property.
I'm glad, thank you for bringing that up. I did have a question because as I read it, it sounded like an affirmative vote recommending that we not exercise the right. Is that a fair way of saying it?
Yes, that's a very fair way of saying it.
Okay.
My question is not specific to this project, but more for my own information and background, and maybe Stan and Brian and Don can give me some information. What do we generally consider when deciding whether we want to exercise a right of first refusal on this type of property? What have we done in the past?
Probably, I would say within 100% of every instance that something along these lines have come up, we have not exercise our right of first refusal, because quite frankly, we don't have the funds to do so. So it has been pretty much pro forma that we do not exercise our right of first refusal and we allow the property to be sold to the already purchase and sale agreement between the two parties.
Okay, that sort of was what I expected, but I wanted a little background, so thank you.
Um, I also had a question, because this is the first time I've had to deal with this as a member of the select board. So when we got the notice this afternoon about the planning board having considered this, is that generally the process? Like, will the planning board typically have had a chance to look at this? Because to Kate's question, I would think that one of the factors we would consider is whether the parcels have some unique value for the town's current or future needs that we would want to at least consider. And the planning board seems to me the best body situated to take a first pass at that question. So do they normally do that before these get to us?
Yes, they do.
Yes, and that's what they stated in their decision.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions?
Plus, we don't have $1.3 million. Yeah.
Well, the devil's in the details there, but yes.
Yeah, the devil's in the details.
Okay.
And they also received feedback from the Conservation Commission prior to their meeting where they covered this. I think Conservation discussed it on Tuesday. Is that right, Don? And
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I mean, if ever there was a situation where there was a particularly desirable piece of land and we had forward notice, we had advance notice, theoretically, we could look to tee something up for a town meeting article or something like
Right.
that. But aside from that, without appropriated funds, we just don't have the opportunity to pursue it.
Okay. So in terms of a motion, I didn't see a specific request, so I'm guessing it's a motion to decline to exercise the town's right of first refusal. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Do you want to take a stab at it, Brian?
Sure. I would make a motion that the town of Bolton decline its right of first refusal for the parcels owned by Mr. Zika.
All right, well, you start out with yes, we'll make a motion that we do not that we decline the consideration of the right of first refusal for the two parcels owned by Paul R. Zika, identified as C-6-C -53.1, which is 7.63 acres, and C.C-38.1, which is 10.42 acres.
And I'll second that.
Great. All right, roll call, Stan,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you, Mr. Philbin.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Mr. Philbin. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Mr. Lowe, nice to see you.
And I just want to
Nice
clarify.
to see you as well, Attorney Philbin.
I just want to clarify, I misread my own notes. The planning board had consulted with the Conservation Trust and the Trails Committee, but I do also believe that the Conservation Commission discussed this.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
All right, great, thanks again. And we will move on to our next agenda item, which is we have a request from Bolton Youth Soccer Association to place a shed at the Forbush Fields to be used as a snack shack. And I believe we're expecting Rebecca McBreen to speak to that request. Hi.
Hi there, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I'm currently at another field, just a baseball field, so sorry about that, guys.
No
We
problem.
didn't win either, so that's
Oh. Well, thank you for being here. Could you just walk us through this request?
sure. Danielle Bradbury and I, she's the president, and we've talked about it with the board. We had a discussion to put a snack shack in to try to capitalize on what we're lacking. We love how it feels down here at the baseball field. It's constantly has a line of kids coming in and out using it. So we know that there's always going to be a need for it. And then it can also be a great fundraiser for Bolton Youth Soccer as well in that regard. And so we've been discussing that. We just ran into a location snafu where we were trying to avoid going anywhere near the conservation area. So the location that we're looking to put, I sent some pictures in for reference. We're just looking for a 10 by 12 shed that would have a window. We want to make it so that it is visually appealing. So we would do like a nice like a Bolton green color, right? So a deeper green, make it appealing, not have it stand out any negative way. So this marker, this picture here is showing where it would be 50 feet from the road, which is my understanding of the bylaws now. We would have to relocate the 2 handicap spots that are currently there, which is possible. Ideally is the second picture, which has the Kona ice truck in it. Jenny, if you could, that other picture, sent them all in.
Jenny, I think you're
I don't know if
muted
she's
in case you were trying to say something.
Sorry about that. I don't think I saw that there were 2
I sent
pictures.
2. There's another one, but on the other side, there is an already existing fenced off area that's directly next to the road. And if anyone's driven by it, it's where the ice cream truck will park or the Kona ice truck will park. It's where we put the nets during the winter time to get them off the field. And what we would like to do, and what we're seeking is actually a variance so that we can put it in that location because it'd be a lot safer for the kids in the lines and give it a nice feel. Hopefully get some picnic tables. We're in touch with the high school, and we would actually like to have in the board with the classes. Andy LeBlanc runs the shop course, right? They would actually build it, so the high school would be willing to build it. We would only have to pay for materials, which is kind of cool, just from a community standpoint. Yeah, this is the plans that drawn up.
Okay, there was no other photo
Yeah.
though, just the plans?
I sent you plans and I sent 2 photos, so if the other one didn't come in, I can send
Yeah,
it
I
to
only
you again and
received-
just
I
recirculate
only
it.
received 1 photo.
Oh, okay. All right, I will, I can recirculate that. But if you, yeah. So the idea being that we would like that variance put in or approved, which I think we can. Parks and Rec has approved the addition as well. And the other big perk is that the high school is going to be using Forbush Fields for JV games and all varsity and JV practices. So there's lots of opportunity for it to be used and manned, and we want to look to get a collaboration with like Bolton Bean and get some great coffee down there for those Saturday morning games. And just kind of, like I said, create that sense of community at the soccer field, just like we have at the baseball field.
Great, thank you. Questions from the board?
I'm assuming that there's no requirement for electricity or anything. You're not going to be cooking anything.
We wouldn't be cooking anything. We are looking, we have an electrician that is our electrician / firefighter volunteer, who's also one of our coaches. He helped with the current shed that we just replaced with the electrical. If possible, we would like to tap into the existing meter just for the purpose of like a refrigerator, just so that we can have cold drinks, and it's literally for that in a light for the inside. But beyond that, no, there's definitely no cooking. No.
Has Randy Heglin, our DPW director, been in on this or has provided any comments?
Not as of yet. I know we talked about like getting the shed down there, and he was very helpful with. Actually, they took our old shed. He was very helpful with the current shed that's at the field, getting that replaced. So, haven't talked to him. So we certainly can, if that's a concern. I don't think we were envisioning that there would be a crossover or an issue there since it wasn't going on the grass.
Well, I mean, that's Bolton Town property. And the
Sure.
DPW manages that. I think it
Yeah.
would be to get his input, which I think would be favorable, but I think it's important to get his input.
Sure. Happy to. Yep.
I'm just having trouble visualizing where it is that you're talking now about putting it, because it's not the picture that we seem to have in our package.
Let
So
me,
is
yeah.
it still gonna be on the gravel of the parking lot?
It would still be on gravel, correct? And Jenny, I'm just gonna try to resend it to you now,
Sure.
because I do say that I sent it. I just don't know why it didn't.
So I guess my question would be safety related, and like, is there gonna be
Yeah.
some way to cordon it off completely from the parking area so kids aren't walking through it and that they're definitely being
Yeah.
filled into the field?
Yeah, for sure. So there is direct access from the field side. So we certainly so actually the shed would take up the majority of that entrance point. So that it would be, and then we can further extend that, right? To really make sure that nobody, with temporary fencing or something, to make sure that nobody can get in from the, so it really deters people from coming in the backside.
Okay, yeah, I'm just having trouble visualizing it, but that would be my concern.
I know, I'm getting there. Yep. All right, I just found it again. So Jenny, let me see if this can go through.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question while we're waiting for the photo?
Yep.
Becca, you made a comment about relocating or moving the handicap spaces. And
Yep.
I would just be curious as to how far they would need to be moved and what that would do to proximity to entering the field, because handicap spaces should be within X number of feet of an entrance.
Yeah, we were, so Lisa and I had discussed that too. So the spot that we would put it would actually be almost behind where the shed would be. So it would just be moving it maybe 20, they'd be moved like 20 feet to the left. Still well within range.
Okay.
And actually we're hoping to give them a couple extra spots if we could.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep. But again, ideally if we don't have to do that, that would be better if we can get, if I can get the variance, then
Sure.
it's in a nicer spot.
All right, thank you.
Jenny, did
Right.
it come through?
It just did, yes. So I will share it
Okay.
now.
So where the Kona truck is basically where we would envision that the backside of the snack shack would be. So it would be facing kind of like up towards the dump in the high school, that direction, just like the truck is facing. But the window would be facing that way as well. So the window wouldn't be on the side. The window would be facing kind of like the nose of the truck.
I see. So
So yeah.
imagine somebody walking up to where the bumper of the truck is, and that's where they place their order.
No, the other side.
Sorry,
So
the
they would
front,
go
the front of the
bumper.
truck, yeah.
Front bumper. Yes. Yes, correct. So the whole line would be filtering only from the fields
Yep.
and down. Yeah.
Does that help, Kate?
Yeah, as long as any space that's between, that fencing is blocked off, so kids aren't kind of
Oh, for
sneaking.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I
sneaking.
totally hear that. That can so quickly happen. Yes, we can definitely barricade that. We'll get creative.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That looks good.
Yeah, that's fine. That's great.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. McBreen, for walking us through that. So I think we probably would like a motion, potentially contingent upon just your following up with Randy Hagelin at the DPW to make sure any of his concerns are addressed, unless the rest of the board would prefer that we wait until she's had a chance to do that.
I'd like to wait and get something back from Randy before we take a vote on this. But I'm fully supportive of it, but I'd like to get Randy since this is a town property.
I think it's fair to say probably we're all supportive of it. And
Yeah.
so just, it'd be good to cross that T and dot that I by checking in with Mr. Hagelin.
And certainly do that. And would I
Okay.
need to come back to the board for that, or would you like me to submit something in writing and then a vote would happen? Or I'm just trying to think of the most efficient way, because I know you guys are moving into a summer schedule.
Yeah, so my view is like, unless there's any unexpected concerns, I think just a written submission since we've had an opportunity to speak with you tonight.
Sure.
Yeah, I
can do
think if Randy comes back and says he's fine, I think if we just have a quick discussion and a vote, you won't need to come back in. Yeah, unless he comes up with something.
Okay. All right, I can do that.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay. Next on our agenda, we are going to have a discussion with the Board of Health and the Parks and Recreation Commission concerning summer programming requirements. I know, Mr. Wysocki, we put this on the agenda at your request, so I didn't know if you had anything that you wanted to say by way of introduction or sort of teeing this discussion up.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I believe Chris Rogers is amongst us, among the audience, but let me tee it up. I had received a phone call from a resident who had watched the April 9th Board of Health meeting where Park and Rec was invited in to talk about some of their summer programs. Based on that phone call, I did reach out to Chris Rogers and spoke with him at length about that meeting, where he expressed, his view of the meeting and what was discussed, and some of his concerns relative to what the Park and Rec is doing, and the whole notion of a classification of whether it's a program or whether it's a camp. And the requirements that one or the other have. I did watch, subsequent to that conversation, I did watch the April 9th Board of Health meeting. I actually watched it twice. I know that during that conversation, there was some information that was being disseminated by the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health regarding some of that stuff. And it appeared that my expectation, well, the expectation that I had observed from the meeting is that, Park and Rec would be getting back in terms of letting the Board of Health, as well as the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health, what steps were being taken in terms of providing, safety and whatnot for the kids who are going to be participating in these activities. And I think there's still some question as to whether or not what Park and Rec is doing this year, given their expansion of the programs and the fact that it's now being held at the Boy Scout camp here off of Hudson Road, whether it still qualifies as a program or a camp. So, based upon that conversation and not getting anything further back, I thought it was important that we maybe get all the parties together to have a conversation, certainly with regard to, making sure that at least what's going on at this point in time, at least meets the minimum requirements. And I'll turn it over to Chris Rogers, who can elaborate a bit more, since I know that board has some concerns that they expressed at that meeting on April 9th.
Sure. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Great, Chris.
So basically, again, I guess to kind of back it up a little bit, I take our board's mandate very seriously, which is basically the safety and well-being of the citizens of the town of Bolton. You know, if you get a sandwich down the street, we know that the food's been tested, et cetera, et cetera. So that being said, again, I think Parks and Recs deserves some very deserved kudos in terms of creating a program that is grown and is succeeding. As part of our role as Board of Health and our relationship with Neshoba Associated Boards of Health, we've got 2 camps of equal size and stature that go through a very clear and comprehensive process just to make sure that we're meeting minimum state standards. And so that was the intention of meeting with Parks and Rec, was to find out where they stood on that and to see if we can, I'm not sure if persuade's the right word, but to agree that they've succeeded to a point where they've gone beyond a program and are running a successful summer camp or a series of summer camps in town.
I guess from Parks and Rec standpoint, we're sensitive to the fact that we're calling it a program, not a camp. A camp appears to be by definition a something done for profit, typically. 105 CMR 430 pretty clearly outlines the exemption that municipalities have for conducting a nonprofit summer program. And apparently a lot of the regulations in Mass General Law 111, 127A, again, are exempted for municipalities who are putting on a program for the citizens and not making a profit. An advisory note on something like March 5th, 2018, clarified that and wanted to ensure that the exemption is held for municipalities that are run by an employee of the town who receives a W-2 and not a third party that the municipality engages to put on that program, as apparently something of a loophole that they discovered. So we continue to seem to fit the proper definition outlined in the CMR for being a summer program. And again, we're in a facility with my understanding with the Boy Scouts that they have also conducted camp reviews with you. We were assured that that is the case, so that we're on a property that already receives camp review, from the Boy Scouts. So we're simply using their property. And the fact that we're using their property and not municipal property, again, is outlined in those advisory notices that I just quoted. We're also, of course, enhancing the safety of the children by now having a building that we can go to during inclement weather or lightning, which we did not have before. And I think the general environment is one that has seen safety standards meeting, state requirements as a bona fide camp, but we're not operating a camp. We're not sleeping over. We're not serving meals or anything like that the way the Boy Scouts do. So we're simply moving our summer program to a safer location without children crossing 117, and not having a shelter during lightning storms. So that's our view, that we're improving this program, but we do not appear to be subject to the specifics of a summer camp regimen. Tom Denny does have to do that. They are for profit. I think they serve something like 600 kids, according to Ellie Monaco, during a summer. I think our numbers are much, much lower. So that's just my initial cut on the fact that we are moving to a better location with greater safety for the children.
Okay, thank you to the three of you for sort of teeing that up. And before we go much further, I think just for my own sake, I want to try to clarify what exactly it is that we're hoping to accomplish in this discussion tonight. So I had an opportunity to watch the meeting from April. I think every member of the select board did, and that was almost 2 months ago now. And it seemed to me, from my having heard that discussion, that there was a little bit of a discrepancy between what the ultimate ask was. Is the ask of Parks and Rec by Board of Health, we think Parks and Rec should should go through all of the same formal processes and filing requirements as a for-profit camp, and regardless of the municipal exemption? Or was the ask, we want to be sure that the substantive guidelines are being followed, even if you don't have to do all the same filings that a for-profit camp would have to do? So I'm a little unclear about whether it's a formal question or we want to be sure the substantive guidelines are being followed, even if we agree that technically the municipal exemption applies. So if anybody wants to help me determine what it is we're trying to advance through tonight's discussion, I'd really appreciate that.
Agreed. I mean, I guess let me jump on that then, just by saying that really what all our board is looking for is to know that the camps are being run to and are meeting minimum state standards. And how we do that currently with quote unquote for-profit camps, which I assume are Adventure Day Camp and Tom Denny.
Right.
I mean, I assume these camps they charge a fee, so I'm not sure how you define profit municipally in terms of there's money going to the town for this, but that's another thing for someone else to figure out. But you know, through our association with the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health, we already have in our stable paid professionals who are here to assist, who basically monitor these programs for us. They go so far, and again, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but they will even vet out the third-party groups that come in, the soccer coaching, whatever programs that the town is hiring inside of this camp as well. So to me, it's again, just to make sure that minimum standards are being met, and compounded by the fact we have this organization that we're members of at no additional fee, who are basically set up to do this for us. It kind of seems like a no-brainer to me. And again, so I guess my kind of where this came up is that yes, you can parse out the definition of program versus camp. I read it and I say, it's a camp. They say they're a program. So I guess we're at an impasse there. So
Yeah. So I've had a chance to read MGL chapter 111, section 27A, and I've also read the CMR regulations. And there's no doubt in my mind that this is a program. There is an exemption that says this is a municipality, this is a program, unless and until the town of Bolton makes a decision that it's a camp. But that has to be an affirmative decision by, as I read the advisory from the Department of Health, it needs to be a joint decision between Parks and Recs and Board of Health for it to become a camp. But at this point in time, it is under the exemption a program. So, I think, I understand Brian's question. I'm also struggling with what the goal is here. It seems to me like I'm hearing Board of Health saying, we've decided this is now a camp. And then I hear Parks and Rec saying, we're meeting the standards without having to go through and define ourselves legally as a camp with all of those additional hoops to jump through. So, yeah, I mean, I just don't see, it's not a camp right now. It is a program until the town of Bolton decides otherwise.
Sorry, Stan, I think you're muted.
I think that was one of the questions that came up on April 9th, is that the Board of Health was thinking based upon the scope that perhaps it has now transitioned into a camp as opposed to a program. But I guess one of the things, and I actually watched the April 9th meeting twice just to make sure I understood what was going on. One of the things that the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health, Jim had sent to the folks at the Park and Rec, yes, he sent the very long CMR, God knows how many, 38 pages, but he did send sort of an 8-page checklist. And it was suggested that Park and Rec take a look at that more short 8-page checklist and see how they were managing whatever aspects of that checklist that apply to them, and how they were providing, for the health and safety and well-being of the campers. And during the course of that April 9th meeting, Mr. Sterling had indicated that, yes, it probably would be a good idea to reconvene and to go through that, and just to make sure that the Park and Rec was be able to check off the various items that apply to them. I'm not sure that has occurred yet. And I think right now at this juncture is, I'm hearing we're meeting the minimum guidelines and meeting standards, but I have not seen any evidence of that, other than what I'm hearing from Park and Rec saying that they are. So, I mean, do they have a checklist? Do they have, have they set up some criteria or guidelines that would satisfy some of the concerns of Board of Health? And I think Chris Rogers said it very eloquently back in April 9th, that the intent here is not to try to stop anybody from doing anything. Park and Rec has done a great job, and we want them to continue that. But because this is being done under the auspices of the town of Bolton, there is potential, for some type of liability that may come down the pike. And if that happens, Board of Health also gets involved in that, as well as the town. So I think Park and to Chris Rogers's point, are we covering all the bases given where Park and Rec thinks they need to be? And I think that's probably a first line here. I think we can debate, not necessarily tonight, as to whether or not it's a camp or a program. I believe that Board of Health believes that it may have already morphed into a camp, given the scope. But that may be a conversation for another day. But I think one of the things here is, is the health and safety of the participants of this camp being addressed?
Fair question. Again, I'm trying to emphasize that we're going into an environment that, it is my understanding, fully meets those standards based on the scouts approaching a Board of Health. I don't know if it's associated boards of Neshoba or not, but we've been told by the representative of the scouts that they definitely go through all those checklists. So we're entering that environment that apparently is safe for children based on inspections that have been done in the past. The other thing I'd emphasize is that this is a brand new experience for us. We've been approached by the scouts, very intriguing idea to use their camp. Again, with all these facilities that for them previous years have had, medical services and shelter, lifeguards, better swimming facilities, and so on. So it's hardly like we're going to Farmer Joe's old field. He's getting, going to let us borrow his barn for the summer. This is a well-defined camp environment. I think we're not quite sure what you want from us, given that we haven't done this before. It would seem to make more sense if we sat down one-to-one, perhaps Lisa, myself, I'd be glad to, with Mr. Gareffi, and go over the checklist and try and discuss in a smaller group, apart from a Zoom meeting, what are the actual concerns? What do you want us to do that wouldn't be there in that apparently safe scouting environment?
So
Also,
I'm at
I
a
want
loss.
to, sorry, Brian.
Okay.
I also wanted to point out from that meeting 2 months ago, we agreed on doing this for 2005. We are going into 2004 summer camp, which we all agreed it's way too soon to do that right now. And we're in the thick of planning and rolling that out. So there was no date to convene before this camp. It would have been after this camp closed, when there's more time in the fall, for 2005, not 2004.
I disagree. I watched the meeting, and no, whether or not the designation of what you're doing continues to be a program or a camp may be held off, but there was clear expectation as to Are you meeting the requirements for a safe environment for the kids?
Well, let me jump in here because actually the question I was going to ask before Ms. Mon made her comment was, I also took away from the April meeting that I think I heard Mr. Rogers say with respect to the question of, is this something we need to do before things start up in 2024? I thought there was a recognition that, hey, we're butting right up against the beginning of this, so we're not expecting you to have all of this figured out before this season. So I thought it was sort of like a, hey, and also I think somebody made the point, like, we have an increase in enrollment this year, but who knows how it's ultimately going to play out. So I thought the expectation was, we've identified this potential issue because the program has appeared to expand in size and scope. Let's try to get ahead of it by making sure that we're talking well in advance of 2025 to see whether we're satisfying all the underlying substantive standards that we think are important to protect the children that participate in this program. That was my takeaway.
Lisa, can you discuss the numbers you're seeing so far in signups?
Yeah, it's not as, I mean, you never know when everybody has a different time when they sign up. Some sign up right away, some sign up right before the week, and some sign up sometime in the middle. And I do have a bunch of people signing up right now. So it's all over the place. It's less than it has been, but you know, I don't know if it'll catch up, but it is a little slower than normal. But I always do, I mean, this is going into the 4th year, and I always have made sure that all the restrictions are met for safety for so I can sleep at night, to make sure everybody's safe in a safe environment. So, and that's not going to change for any time, whether you want to call us a camp or a program, it's always going to be that way. And I know what the guidelines are. I read that from the first year of what the guidelines are. And I always, you know, if they say the guidelines are 7 kids for one counselor, I'm doing 4 kids per counselor because they're young kids. I just want to make sure that everybody is safe. And I want to even make sure even more now, because we are at this location, there's water, we can't go in the water unless we have enough lifeguards. So that's just, you know, what I do no matter what.
So if Lisa and I went to Mr. Gareffi's office, does that help us move forward? Does that satisfy everyone?
I guess I'm wondering if
possible.
I guess I'm wondering if one way to approach this is an agreement that we are not looking to make a determination for camp year 2024, because that's just not feasible. But that doesn't mean we can't go through the checklist and make sure that we are meeting all of the most major concerns.
I agree.
On that checklist for 2024, with the idea of maybe seeing how this season goes and revisiting the whole thing in the fall to see if we need to move from program to camp, or whether there are major safety issues or things that were addressed or that were identified. But I think we can do this in stages that isn't going to throw a wrench into the works for the entire summer program this year. But we'll still make sure we're meeting all of the Board of Health concerns.
Exactly. I don't think there's been there's been no expectation that we're trying to decide whether it's a program or a camp now, but we do that later. But to your point, Kate, to make sure that the health and safety of the kids is being met based on the checklist that the gym has provided.
So is that the best idea? Lisa and I will visit Mr. Gareffi?
I think it's a fantastic. I think it's a fantastic first step, Ed. I mean, again, you know, we're not looking to be rainmakers here to spoil anyone's parade. Again, I want to see this succeed. I wish it was in place and our kids are of age to have taken advantage of it. And again, we already have, by our subscription to Neshoba, a group that are professionals at this already. So I'm kind of pitching them not as an adversary in this situation or someone who's going to make your life difficult, but you've got a group here that's going to ideally make it even better. And that's it. So yes, and again, back to Brian's earlier point too. Yeah, no, we came in never expecting to, kind of implement this or force it for this year, kind of hoping that we could start this camp season with this checklist with Jim and see how it rolls out. And who knows, through your own experience, you may look at it and say, we really are more of a camp, because again, it's a very, I know, Kate, you're an attorney. I understand that you're reading it as a sentence written, but again, a program to me is something they do in an afternoon at the library, a coding program or something to that effect. This is, in my opinion, far better. I mean, the fact that they're able to use the old Boy Scout camp is fantastic. So it is, yeah. So I'm on board with that. I think that's a great plan. Put them in a room and let's, we've got theoretically a full year to see how this rolls out.
Yep.
Jim, can we come see you?
Sure.
That's the best way to do it. You want to come see us?
Well, everybody's doing the same thing this time of year, so
Okay.
With the timelines that you have in place, I'm certainly happy to have some cursory meetings to kind of get a sense of it, but
Right.
maybe more in depth as the seasons progress and camps are inspected and there's more time for everybody.
Okay.
That work for you, Chris?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
I think we've made progress. I just wanted to note, like, in terms of some next steps beyond this initial phase. So just to put my own personal feelings on the table, so you're aware of them, as like from the perspective of a parent who might send a child to a program, I think parents want to know, like, whether they're aware of the municipal exemption or not, they would want to know that I'm sending my kid to what is in effect a camp. And so they're all following basically the same minimum guidelines. So I think, like, that is what we should be working towards. Now, whether we still decide to take advantage of the municipal exemption for some paperwork reasons that I'm not familiar with, because it sounded like there's some onerous requirements. Bottom line is, for me, the substantive safety requirements are really important, and I think it's key that our program be meeting those, even if it's technically not a camp. Then the second point is, I did hear a lot of concern expressed about the workload and the hours required to maybe fill out some of the certifications and paperwork. And so I would say, to that point, I think it's totally fair and appropriate for Parks and Rec to bring that element into the discussion in the future, just so that we know to plan budgetarily for that, right? Like, we can't expect, a person who's working X hours a week to add an additional, however many hours and not support that. So I'd want to make sure we add that into the conversation as well at some point.
Right. And let me stress that this is an experiment for us. I mean, it was very unexpected that the Scouts approached us. I've been in scouting for 25 years. I've never heard of a scout camp coming to a town saying, come use our camp. But Scouts are getting a bit desperate these days. They've had a lot of monetary troubles, legal troubles. And so this may be, one of those facets where the representative approaching us has said, he's been given some orders, go find some revenue. If you need to, go talk to the towns and see if somebody can use the camp. And we were certainly receptive to the idea. So we're going into a bit of the unknown. There's no doubt about that, and hoping it works out. But again, it seems to be a trusted, safe environment, at least to me. And by going over the checklist with Mr. Greffy, let's make sure that that's true.
Okay.
We'll find an appointment.
All right. Anything else before we wrap this up? No. Well, thank you all for taking time to be here
Thank you.
tonight to have this
Thank you.
conversation.
Thanks,
All right.
Brian.
See ya.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yep.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Well, we already got our town administrator report. So, oh, sorry, Don, did you have a comment, or were you just waving for your fans?
He may want to do it again.
Just acknowledging that I've already done it.
Okay, so we'll roll right along into select board business. First up, are there any public service announcements?
Not tonight for me.
Any from you, Kate?
Nope, not from me.
I do have one public service announcement, which is just want to remind the public, and we're going to get into this a little bit later, but that if you have a dog in the town that is not registered yet, you can go online to pay to register your dog and avoid a late fee. I believe we're going to be putting up an image on social media. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Jenny. Oh my gosh, you're so great. Yes, so please visit our website and then use the online payments. I can tell you from firsthand experience that it's an easy system to follow to make sure your beloved pooch is legit. So that is my public service announcement.
Your beloved pooch is legit.
Yeah. All right. So if there's no other public service announcements, any future agenda items for consideration?
Not
Um,
for me.
I have a couple.
All right, bring the fire, Kate.
All right, I was looking at the town website at our policies. And I would like to discuss the town policies about updating and revising them. A lot of them seem to predate the use of the term select board. A lot of them are from the early 2000s and earlier. And I have some questions as to whether all of them are relevant or whether there are provisions that should be updated. So I'd like to discuss generally a review of all of the policies that we publicize on the website. And the second thing that I would like to put on is the discussion of the development of a civility policy for town boards and town workers, a code of conduct and general expectations as to how we all will interact with each other and with employees.
Okay, so with respect to the first item, just from like a project management standpoint, I think we, part of the discussion may be like breaking it up into tranches of review of policies. So I guess what I would say is we can add this agenda item to a future agenda, but probably we'll spend most of I would think we would spend most of our time figuring out like how we're going to stage the review rather than necessarily digging into specific policies. Does that?
I think it's a long-term project to update. I don't think it's a one meeting. I think probably involves the select board looking at some of them and town departments looking at others, and probably several meetings over the course of a year just to bring everything up to where it should be.
So one thing that would be really helpful, Kate, is if you could maybe put together some thoughts about how we should approach that project, so then we can discuss those in a public meeting.
Sure.
And then same thing with respect to your civility policy point, like if there are any reference or background materials that you could share through the town administrator with us in advance, that would be really helpful.
Sure, I can put that together.
Okay. Great. Next up.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I have one future agenda item for the next meeting. I also think I just want to reinforce what Kate said. I think the board will find that very useful over the course of the next year. Some of our policies definitely need to be dusted off and updated. So I think that's if I were remaining, I would find that to be a very useful thing to do. The one thing I have is, without getting expansive, I had a discussion with town council earlier today, and it feels like it's time for a law committee meeting. And I know you'll be voting the next few meeting dates in a little bit. The one recommended for June is June 20th. And for the sake of discussion, if you do go with June 20th as the next select board meeting, my suggestion is that we have a law committee meeting at 6 o'clock with the board meeting starting at 7, if that works for your schedules. But if that doesn't work for your schedules, it'll be at some point in June, we should have a law committee meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm just scrolling back up. I think next up, we are going to execute the dog warrant in accordance with MGL Chapter 140, Section 151A. I don't actually recall what we did last year, and I don't know whether the select board has any questions or comments about this, this procedure that we go through annually.
If
I don't.
anybody could provide some background on kind of what I'm looking at, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so
It just looks like some language that's probably cut and pasted from the general laws. And I mean, I'm guessing we just do this every year and it's sort of a formality, or?
yeah, my understanding is that we do this every year to basically authorize the animal control officer to be able to pursue and act on any dogs that are unlicensed. I don't actually know whether we have like statistics about the number of dogs each year where some action is taken in sort of response to this. I think it's funny when you read it, it's like, it's not just dogs that the animal control officer happens to encounter out in public, out and about, that doesn't happen to have a license, but it's also like, you're supposed to go and seek out any animals if they don't have a license. It's not my understanding that that is like a particularly big part of what her activities are, but I think this is a formality that we do every year.
Yes, it is a formality that we do every year. It's another step in an iterative process where people are further noticed that their dogs have not been licensed yet. Ultimately, and it comes after this, for any remaining dogs who are not licensed, then the owners are notified, I'm sure by certified mail, to appear in Clinton District Court, to appear in front of the magistrate if they have not licensed their dogs. I can't give you numbers. The town clerk could. I could tell you that historically the number of owners that ever end up actually going to court is, I want to say, around 3 or 4. I mean, it's a very, very low number. And again, this is anecdotal, but I would say, and Jenny, if you know different, please correct me, but I would guess at this point right now, we're probably not looking at more than, I would guess, 20 to 30 owners. Again, I could be wrong, but that, for some reason, that's stuck in my head. So again, very anecdotal, but it is all very pro forma and procedural.
I'm sorry, Don, were you talking about the number of dogs that aren't registered, or were you talking about the number of animals that Phyllis responds to in a year?
I was talking about the number of dogs that are not registered.
The number of dogs that are not registered currently, as of this morning, I believe was 69. And I know that there were a few calls today that came in, so a handful of those might have come in, but it's a larger number than you would think.
Okay.
But I think this warrant is more broad than that. It gives, I think the summary at the bottom says the most. It's it allows the officer to take owners to court and follow a procedure and place in another home after 7 days of detainment or humanely euthanize. No, I guess it is for acting on unregistered dogs. Yeah, so it is a larger number than
That is a larger number. That is a larger number than I remember, and it is it's very effective in getting a response from people. We have found it to be extremely, extremely effective.
Yep.
Because the last thing that Phyllis wants is to have to go to court. to take action with somebody. That's not the intent. The intent is to just to get everybody to license their dogs.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, is there a motion to execute the warrant?
Make a motion that we execute the dog warrant in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 151A.
Second,
Okay, all in favor, roll call. Kate,
yes.
Stan,
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. All right, now we were provided with a site plan review application and fee. I was wondering actually whether either Don Lowe or Jenny could just provide a little bit of context around how this is sort of comes before us.
Well, currently, the select board is the entity that does site plan review when necessary. And it doesn't happen very often. But this is, we're looking at, if I remember correctly, the impetus for this is the high school building project. And we also do not have an established fee for site plan review. So, and as you'll see in an item a couple of bullets down, we'll be discussing fees in general. So essentially that's why it's on the agenda, because unlike most towns, the select board is currently responsible for select board review. I mean, for site plan review.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what I see in our packet, which is we have basically a site plan application, which is the form that we would have an applicant fill out. And then, yep, and that's a multi-page application, which covers a number of questions and gathers information. And then after that, there's the document that says site plan application fee, where there's the $540 application fee. Then the peer review fees under, that's chapter 53G. And those other items. So it's these two things that you want us to review and approve tonight.
Correct.
And I'll just add that Pam Harding, when the application came in, she looked around for the existence of this application and this fee so that she knew how to guide the applicant, and was unsuccessful in locating an application. I don't know if we never had one, or if she just hasn't been able to locate it in the existing files of the previous town planners. So she pulled this together because she recognized a need for it.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Just so I'm clear, I think I remember seeing a meeting not long ago where the select board delegated site plan review of the high school to the planning board. Am I right about that?
Yes, you are. And the planning board is going to be working on a bylaw change for next town meeting where the planning board would officially take over site plan review responsibility, but this is sort of a bridge for that right now.
I guess my question is, does it make sense to have the planning board give input on this if ultimately it's going to become probably their form in the future anyway, and they've got more expertise on this to begin with?
Well, this generated from the town planner.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
And Don, where'd the $540 come from?
The town from which Pam discovered this data.
Okay. Well, I'm fine with it for the, I guess, for as you described, the interim.
Okay.
I don't really have any skills or expertise to bring to the review of this, so I've got nothing.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat in the sense that to a certain degree, I think we're relying on our town planners input and expertise on the contents of this application. So with that, is there a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion that we approve the site plan review application and fee as provided by our town planner.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, Kate,
Yes.
Stan,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. All right, thanks. And then next up on our agenda, we're going to review the Town of Bolton Select Board fee schedule, which includes some proposed revisions.
No, you missed one.
Oh, sorry, did I?
Preliminary discussion on Houghton meeting room policy.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
So, Mr. Chair, if I could just sort of set the discussion here for you.
Yep.
Unlike some of the other policies we have which need updating, this is a policy that needs to be created from scratch. Jenny and I put together a draft for you to consider. This is not something that we're expecting you or anticipating you would approve tonight. This is what we provided you is for the purpose of just some discussion tonight, for you to ponder and discussion at one or more future meetings. This has been somewhat of a need for a while. It hadn't become a priority for me until the meeting room at the library became inaccessible while the restroom project is going on. But even after that's sorted out, this is still something that needs to be established as far as how we're going to allow that conference room in the Houghton building to be utilized and the criteria under which it would be utilized and what needs to be in place before it can be. So what we've given you is, as I said, a broad outline. It's meant to stimulate discussion. I don't know how far you want to take it tonight. Maybe some initial questions that you might have. And then, as I said, this is probably going to be a couple of meetings before you finally wrap it up, but it's important to get the discussion started.
Thank you for providing that context. Yeah, I do think it would make sense to hear any initial questions or comments from the rest of the board, and so that we kind of air things as we decide in future meetings how we want to handle this. So
I have comments.
Do you want me to share it prior to Keith's comments or no?
Sure, yeah,
Share
you can
the
put it
screen?
up. Yeah, put it up on the screen, please.
Sorry to interrupt, Kate.
Yep, no problem. So the first question I had was on number 1. Just personal experiences I've had in town of trying to reserve space for meetings. I notice this is limited to town departments, boards, commissions, or a community-based not-for-profit entity at the invitation of a town department. And I've requested use of that room personally for kind of more informal things like, a gardening guild and seed swap, which is not formal or official, but that's usually because the meeting room at the library is often not available and it's never available on weekends. So this seems like it would preclude the use of that space for anything informal for people in town. And that would be a concern to me, just because there are such a limited number of places to meet to begin with.
It is not to exclude anyone, but the uniqueness about the Houghton building is that it's essentially an unoccupied building for the most part and unmonitored. And until we get into a situation where we can where we have a lock that can be programmed temporarily, reprogrammed remotely. We are trying to avoid having an expansive use of the building where the code for the lock is widely known. This is around security and management, not wanting to exclude people. So we're trying to put as much structure as we can into it without making it too restrictive. So we're trying to find that sweet spot, which is one of the reasons why I said I think this is probably going to take multiple conversations, because concerns such as yours are perfectly valid. So how we strike that is going to be a little tricky, but your point is very well taken.
So I want to just repeat something that I think I heard to make sure I got it right. It sounds like one of the key security considerations relates to sort of like a technical limitation of how the door lock is established now, which is that there's a single code. Once you know it, you know it. And so, if you grant permission to a group in, January, the following December, that person could use the same code to get in the building, and it would be hard to control because you can't reprogram the code. Is that right?
That is essentially right. It's a very old lock. Documentation is sparse and apparently difficult to understand. So we need a 21st century lock on that door is what we need.
Yeah.
And that will enable quite a bit.
Well, the other thing also is that, as Don pointed out, it's an unoccupied building. And also Batco has their offices on the second floor with all types of expensive television and broadcasting equipment. So, I think maybe over time we can relax the requirements, but I have no problem with number one, the way it stands, given the current situation and limitations of the building.
And that is quite frankly one of our concerns, since it is an essentially empty, not empty, but unoccupied building, unlike the training room at the public safety building and many times at the library. And Batco does have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment in there. We want to make that as secure as possible. Again, not trying to preclude people, just trying to find how we find that sweet spot to make it manageable and make sure that we're ensuring safety at the same time. And from an insurance standpoint also, we're worried about liability.
Okay. Other factual questions or other comments people want to raise now?
Responsible is spelled wrong in item number 6.
Any line edits to offer?
I just noticed that now.
Jenny likes to drop in non sequiturs to make sure people are reading it.
Exactly,
Good
right?
job, you found the Easter egg.
There you go.
Okay, well, I think we can take this up again at a future meeting. Just, I know you said there wasn't a huge rush, but is there a sense that either of you could give about when you would like to be able to have a policy like this resolved so you can respond appropriately to incoming requests?
Well, I mean, certainly the sooner the better. Early in the new fiscal year would be great, because, we are going to have to sort out the door issue and all that. So even if you voted everything tonight, that wouldn't assuage our concerns about how we ensure the, the security of the building. But, I think you'll know pretty quickly. I don't think it's going to take 5 meetings, but it may take 2 or 3. And so the sooner the better, but I don't see it as a rush.
Okay.
Because we are not getting tons of requests yet, but we would like to have a policy in place. We would like to be able to stay ahead of this now that the demand we're assuming is going to pick up.
Okay. So I think then the ask that I would make of my fellow board members is that for the next meeting, if there are like specific edits or things that we want to propose, we come prepared to offer those, and then if we can reach agreement at the next meeting, we'll take a vote, and if we need one more to implement edits, we can do that.
Okay.
Sound good? That is a beautiful cat, Stan.
My
Is it-
baby.
Does it need to be licensed or subject to death if not? All right, so now I think we do get to move forward to the fee document. And those proposed revisions are in red. Although, anyway, Jenny or Dawn, would you mind just walking us through those proposed revisions? Or maybe Jenny, you can put it up on the screen.
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, so there's a amendment to an existing license, which would be a new fee of $300.
It would, and the intention behind this really, well, it's twofold. One, if someone is looking to make a change of definition of their premises, and another would be, and this happens from time to time, the change in the manager, whoever the bar manager is in the case of a tavern or whoever, there's always a manager's name on the license. Managers come and go. Most towns have a fee for administrating that. We do not. And we felt that a $300 fee was certainly reasonable.
And I will say an amendment to an existing license is as much work, if not more, than receiving a renewal for a license. And right now the ABCC does collect a fee, but we haven't had a formalized fee for the town.
Yep. I think it's fine.
Okay. And then, go ahead, keep going.
I was saying next under other licenses, commercial use of town property, filming, because we have had some film companies in town. The filming license itself is $500. If they look to use town property as part of their filming, it's $750 a day. Earlier tonight, we ran into another example of people looking to use town property, and ultimately it's for a commercial venture. So we felt that $750 a day for that type of thing as well was not unreasonable. If we're going to charge a film company that, why would we not charge somebody else that? So that's for your consideration. And then finally, just to confirm, when we need to make copies for people, or if we get to a point in a records request where there's copies to be made, we look at 5 cents a page for that. And also we've got the large printer, the plot plan size printer downstairs, where we at times are asked to make copies for attorneys, real estate agents, contractors, that type of thing. It's not cheap. Those supplies are not cheap. So we felt that $5 a page again was quite reasonable.
And just a small point of correction, we have not been asked by anybody to make any large format copies yet. But we did just purchase the large format copier. Was it less than a year ago?
Mm-hmm.
It was after last town meeting, and we knew that we needed to establish this fee.
Right.
We thought we could gauge how many pages came out of the ink that we put into the machine, but it's such low use that we probably won't go through that ink for multiple years. So instead we reached out to Stowe and we reached out to Neshoba Associated Boards of Health to see what they charge for large format printing, and they charge $6 in Stowe, $5 at the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health. And I just thought that $5 was easier to make change from, honestly.
Correct.
Yeah. Got it.
Because we do sometimes have people looking for us to make change. We're not a bank, as you may know. We do not keep petty cash here. Strongly discouraged by the auditors, and I agree with them. So we did feel $5 was more manageable than $6.
Any other questions from the board?
Nope, I'm fine with it.
I'm just questioning whether 5 cents for regular copies is adequate. You know, I don't know anywhere you can get a copy for 5 cents these days.
Legally, it's the most that we can charge.
Oh.
We used to charge more. But Don, do you remember how many years ago that changed where the maximum became set at 5 cents? And
I
we
want to
had-
say it was 8 or 9 years ago. It's been a while. It really fell under the public records law, as I recall. I could be wrong about the citation, but I think it was all part of that. And yes, we are limited to 5 cents.
We would love to charge more.
Yeah, but Kate, this also does not include whatever time it takes to research and to find those documents. That's all built. So if someone does a public records request, and it requires somebody to do some background research and digging, there are also some state guidelines on what we can charge for that. It's certainly less than hourly rates that we should be getting, but there are guidelines on that. So it's just for the actual printing of the pages, but there are other fees involved if it's a rather convoluted public records request.
I believe the wording is the lowest rate of the person of someone qualified to do the work. And I think it cannot exceed $25 an hour. So if the town administrator at my rate were the only qualified person to do the research, we could only charge $25 an hour for my time.
Yep.
Sure. And then I had one more question on the amendment to existing license. Does that need to be more specific? Is it amendment to existing license is it for the section 12 pouring license, or do we need to define that more carefully?
It would be for any liquor license.
Yeah, it could be for any of them. It would not be for section 14 though, I guess, to your point.
Oh, not for the 1 day. No, I'm sorry, but for any on premises and farm, that type of thing. So, but not for a 1 day. It would be
So
for an
for the-
establishment.
So for the section 12, the section 15 and the farm series,
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
I might make that more specific, just so it's clear.
Okay. That's a very good point.
Okay. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, subject to that clarifying suggestion, which I think is a good one, is there a motion to approve these proposed revisions to the select board fee schedule?
Make a motion that we approve the revised fee schedule as provided, including the one suggestion by Kate.
Second,
Okay, roll call. Kate,
yes.
Stan,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well.
And Kate, what I think I'll do, if it makes sense, is list this fee in triplicate and list it once under section 12, once under section 15, and once under farm series. Would that be the clearest way?
I think that would be very clear, yeah.
Okay.
Great. All right, now we are going to consider and select our next select board meeting dates. Jenny, would you mind putting those up on the screen as well? Okay, well, today's May 30th, so we're good there. I am personally fine with the 20th, the 11th, and the 22nd. These are all at 7 p.m.
Right
Those are
now,
all with
I'm good
me.
with them.
Sorry, Stan, I think you said you're good with them.
Yep, for the moment, I'm good with them, yep.
And then what about you, Kate?
Yep, all fine with me.
Okay. To the point that Dawn raised earlier about a potential law committee meeting on the 20th. If we were to start that meeting at 6 p.m. on the 20th, would that work for both of you?
Yep,
Well, am I part of the law committee? I guess I need an
yes, you
explanation.
are, yeah,
All
you-
right, then
yeah,
I will-
the selectmen are, the select board members are part of the law committee.
all right, that's fine with me as well.
Honestly, for me, it's something I'm gonna have to go back and check part of my travel schedule because I actually do have something on the 20th where I'm gonna be away and I need to confirm that. So Jenny and Don, I guess I can just follow up separately with you about that.
Yes,
And there is no reason that the law committee needs to meet at the same date and time as a select board meeting. So
Right.
if it is a conflict, we could probably find another time of day that works.
Yep,
Okay.
right. Generally speaking, since we have the board scheduled on a given evening, it's easier to do it that way logistically, but because you do all have, busy schedules, but sure, it could be a standalone meeting. It doesn't have to be the same night as a select board meeting.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be at night. I mean, if you're all available at 2 PM, it can be 2 PM.
Yep. Okay. I'll follow up. Thank you. Okay. Next, it's approval of bills / payroll warrants W24-23 and W24-23A. And since this is Kate's first official participation in this part, I don't know if Jenny or Don, you could just walk through like the physical signing and review of all of that stuff.
I actually had to do that already with the last batch, so Jenny walked me through it a little bit.
Oh, great. Well, in that case, is there a motion?
motion to approve bills and payroll warrants W24-23 and W24-23A.
Second,
Okay, all in favor, Kate,
yes.
Stan?
Yes,
I'm a yes as well.
And
Okay,
that warrant is on the counter already to be signed, and there's some other signing from this meeting, so I didn't send an email out to you, a text out to you earlier because I knew you'd all be coming in.
okay,
okay, great. So those are there tonight, you said?
Yes,
Oh, great, awesome.
Okay.
And then finally, I believe that we have minutes from April 24th. I don't know if you could just pop those up, Jenny, if you received any
Yes.
edits.
more than usual. I was a little sloppy, I think, with my cut and paste. Let me pull those up.
While you're doing that, I will say I'm feeling a little self-conscious about the fact that this is our first meeting in a while that went over 9 o'clock. So not sure that bodes well for my term as chair.
All right, so. Dan, I really thought you were there apparently, because I put you all over the minutes. Are you seeing them? Are you seeing the
Yeah.
changes?
I am.
Yep.
So this is a silly
Oh, so
question.
this is we're in a quandary, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess, so I'm the only member of the select board who was at that meeting.
What if you voted to appoint the chair to approve these minutes?
Well, actually, not to get too deep into the weeds here, but you have a quorum present. And it's certainly appropriate for the purpose of discussion for somebody who wasn't there to second a motion to vote on the minutes. And then the vote can be 1 in favor, none opposed, 2 abstained, and that's a legitimate vote.
Oh, wow. That is some Robert's Rules of Order jujitsu you just did, Don.
I waited 15 years to pull that one out of my bag of tricks.
That is amazing. Ah, highlight of my day. Okay, so why don't we do that?
Do we do a motion to do what Don said?
Yeah, what Don said. I'll make a motion to approve what Don said.
Okay,
So Brian, I mean, for the sake of procedure, you could make the motion, either Stan or Kate could second it,
yep.
and then you would vote in favor, none opposed, you would seek abstentions, and there would be 2 abstentions.
Perfect. All right. So I will make a motion to approve the edited version of the April 24th minutes. There a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Wysocki. Now I will do a roll call. Kate,
I will abstain.
Stan,
I know nothing.
he's abstaining also. And I will vote in favor. The motion passes 1 to whatever you call that.
1 to infinity. There,
Yeah.
to infinity and beyond.
Great. Thanks for getting us through that. All right. Last thing, I guess, is a motion to adjourn.
Oh, can I do one? Can I do one? I move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor, roll call. Stan,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you both, Dawn and Jenny, and great to see you both, Stan and Kate. And I love when Jenny says, and the time for the record is.
The time for the record is 9:12 p.m.
Ding dong.
Good night.
Have a great
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.